Punk Revolution now. Today we are going to be reviewing Earl Sweatshirt's newest album, Sick. And let me tell you something first up so you understand. I've been listening to Earl Sweatshirt since 2012. Before some rap songs, before I Don't Like Crap, I Don't Go Outside, before Doris. Literally in 2012 when the only thing he had out was his legendary self-titled debut mixtape, Earl. Which, by the way, this album right here is a freaking classic. It's a legendary album. Do not let anyone tell you anything else, and do not forget the legacy of this amazing mixtape. I've been listening to Earl since 2012. I literally was anticipating and looking forward to Doris in excitement, following with every single Earl Sweatshirt release, and some rap songs is like, that is like one of my favorites of the past decade. Amazing album. So I know Earl Sweatshirt, and it seems like every time Earl Sweatshirt releases a new album, it like revolutionizes hip-hop. Earl Sweatshirt releases a new album, it's a big deal. Let's start by taking a look at Sick's album cover. This is an album cover you actually want to look at pretty closely to see all the stuff going on in there. If you don't actually really focus on it, you're gonna miss some details, because you can see you got the Earl Sweatshirt, kind of like, it's like a silver kind of sculpture of him right in there in the middle, which is honestly a really cool looking sculpture. You can see he's got a mask on. By the way, we're having a freaking pandemic right now, for those of you who don't know. If you kind of look around the edges of the album cover, you see like some pills at the top. Who knows what pills those are. You can see what looks like maybe some garlic on the side, and then some sage on the side. Don't really know. It looks very kind of spiritual. I don't know exactly what all of these little things represent. And then at the bottom you see some photos. You can see in those photos there's like some women. It looks like there's some like ashes or something. I don't know, but it just, to me, this photo looks like very, very thought out. Like everything is very thought out. I don't know exactly what all of it means, but it looks really cool, and it kind of gives me maybe some spiritual or maybe some personal vibes that just is like real personal about what connects with Earl Sweatshirt. So pretty interesting album cover. I can already tell this is gonna be a freaking Earl Sweatshirt album. The album cover is very kind of abstract and mysterious, which definitely fits the vibe of Earl Sweatshirt's music. Kind of reminds me a bit of the Some Rap Songs album cover, which is very different from the Sick album cover, but both are very like perplexing. I think perplexing is the key word here to describe Earl Sweatshirt's music and vibe, and we're seeing this, I can just tell looking in from the outside, and this is going to be a perplexing album. Also very short, similar to his previous releases. Also has Armand Hammer producing, which was a hip-hop producer who's kind of dipped his toes in all sorts of stuff, from Freddie Gibbs to Armand Hammer to even Earl Sweatshirt's previous stuff. The Alchemist is a producer that knows how to do abstract hip-hop. So we're bringing all the ingredients of an abstract, artsy Earl Sweatshirt album, and you put the music on and you can just tell that's where we're going, folks. 2010, I love the production on that song. It like vibes around the headphone in a very, very psychedelic way. Like this production feels to me almost like it could be like a psychedelic, like a neo-psychedelia project that doesn't necessarily even need to be hip-hop. It's just so like warm and fuzzy, like a good psychedelic trip. Like Some Rap Songs is a psychedelic trip as well. Very abstract and trippy. But Some Rap Songs is just, it's so depressive, and like it just feels like a blur of depression, like a psychedelic blur of depression, like you're having a bit of psychosis. This one here feels like more of a kind of looking around, like a psychedelic vibe of looking around the world and looking and observing and thinking about the green, beautiful grass and thinking about your life and growing old and your family. It's a kind of a more serious, more philosophical kind of abstract psychedelic vibe that he creates here, and then he has all these rapping, the way he just boom, 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 just stacks all these rhymes together. It's just so, it sounds amazing, and once you start listening and focusing on the lyrics and picking apart what he's saying, it's just so, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful, and it is diving into these kind of spiritual and psychedelic and sort of magical sort of themes that fit the album cover, like I said, kind of giving off the little bit of a spiritual vibe. It just feels like, you know, it feels like he's growing older and is getting a little bit more like philosophical. I think my very favorite song on this album, and I think is also one of Earl Sweatshirt's very best songs ever, is the song Vision, because that just combines so many great things. We got this beautiful like grand piano sample that's like that's got like maybe some reverb and just some beautiful effect. Like it just feels like you're kind of like swimming or like floating into the air. It's such a beautiful, euphoric and atmospheric sample, maybe a little bit cloud rappy, Clams Casino-y. And then we've got this feature from Zaloopers, whose rapping is just so direct and kind of like narrow and maybe slightly nasally and monotone in a way that kind of reminds me a little bit of Lil B, like a monotone, kind of just letting the words pour out of his mouth. It sounds freaking great because you got that direct delivery that just cuts through this beautiful beat that's like so beautiful, la 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 la, and then you've got doon doon doon, the Zaloopers rapping. It sounds, the contrast sounds fantastic, and then once Zaloopers is done with his verse, which is a freaking fantastic verse, then Earl Sweatshirt comes in and he's got his own little like, you know, kind of like you know, if Zaloopers is like this, Earl Sweatshirt's kind of like this. So the contrast and the development of that song sounds great on top of a freaking beautiful beat. And right after that, we've got the song Tabula Rasa with Armand Hammer featured. I gotta say, this is kind of an interesting thing here to me because Armand Hammer collaborated with The Alchemist. The Alchemist is the person who's producing this record, Sick. They collaborated last year on this record, Haram. And I remember listening to Haram, and it's a really cool record. And to me, when I listened to Haram, I was like, wow, this feels like a really like kind of like dark and kind of like evil, magical kind of version of Earl Sweatshirt. And then and I thought the connection and the influence from Earl Sweatshirt to Armand Hammer was so clear there. And now Earl Sweatshirt is literally bringing the crew in to help put this album together. And I think this is a great song. It does feel a little bit like, you know, like this isn't super cutting edge to me. I just heard an Alchemist and Armand Hammer collaboration last year that sounded very Earl Sweatshirt-esque, and now I'm kind of getting that again in a 24-minute package in this record with very talented rapping, very beautiful production, very great lyrics and stuff. It does kind of wear away at me feeling like this album really is kind of like cutting edge in any sense. I feel like every single time Earl Sweatshirt has released an album, it feels like an important album in the genre of hip-hop that's gonna be influential, that's ahead of its time, that's cutting edge, that's innovative, that's gonna turn heads and make people say, I wanna do that. With Sick, I feel like this is a great record. It does feel a little bit, though, like there's not that cutting edge aspect, and it feels like Earl Sweatshirt is kind of continuing to play with some ingredients we've already heard before, and maybe that's kind of Earl Sweatshirt being just so influential and influencing so many acts that at this point, Earl Sweatshirt making music that sounds like Earl Sweatshirt isn't going to be as mind-blowing as it could be. And I'm not, I guess you could say, and this is kind of a very crude and facile way to think of it, but you can kind of think of like this sort of like Earl core hip-hop with lots of like, you know, like Earl Sweatshirt, Mike, Mavi, maybe the most recent Armand Hammer, just I guess just like this kind of like dark abstract hip hop with sort of depressive kind of vocals coming out. Another one, Red Veil. There's a lot of hip hop artists kind of making music within this style, and that is totally understandable because it's awesome. I don't have any problem with a lot of artists making music that fall in this kind of subcategory of abstract hip hop. I love it. I want them to keep doing it, and they all are awesome. I love them, and I don't want to call it Earl core because Earl wasn't necessarily the first person to do it or the best at doing it. He's just the most critically and commercially successful, so we're gonna have him as the face of this sort of subgenre. And after just listening to so much of this kind of music, which is all great, Earl Sweatshirt releases a kind of a pretty safe and standard Earl core record that's very well executed. It just doesn't shake me to my core like Earl Sweatshirt's previous albums. And that's fine. He's a great artist. Not every single album needs to blow your mind. I just, you know, maybe I hold Earl Sweatshirt to a higher standard because of his legacy. So I'm saying this is a pretty dang good but short album, not super innovative album from Earl Sweatshirt that it's a pleasant listen, but really not mind-blowing within the genre. So putting it all together, there's, you know, lots of great tracks, lack of innovation, it's so short, and it just kind of goes by really quick without stunning me necessarily too much. I'm giving this a 7.7 out of 10. That's a very good album. It's a very good album. It's one of those weird things where if you just ignore the rest of Earl Sweatshirt's discography, this is a great, awesome album. But if you put it at 7.7 in the context of his rest of his discography, it's like, okay, you know, that's cool. It's another great abstract hip-hop album. Not gonna revolutionize hip-hop like some of his previous releases did. But Earl Sweatshirt, he's a freaking legend. Do not dismiss his debut mixtape. I promise you. I know it's edgy. I know it's got some horrible lyrics in there. Don't think about it necessarily as a super edgy project. Think of it as a historical documentation of a really screwed up year in the lives of teenagers. And hence you get edgy lyrics like Earl Sweatshirt. By the way, I'm going to be uploading videos from now on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So every day on those days, come to my channel. You will find a new video. I'll be uploading it around the middle of the day. Those, to me, are days that just work really well with me. I like this schedules for me. I wanted to do 2 a week, but then I was like, I want to make more stuff. 2 is not enough. I have more to say. So I'm doing 3, and I feel the best about 3 a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Please like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell. That also helps if you can do that too. Thanks so much, everybody. Punk Revolution now.